I recently did a Super Nintendo customization, and it was a headache. But here are 5 lessons that I learned when doing this. Number 1, power for USB-C customization. As you can see, here's the original Super Nintendo power adapter. And if you look really closely, you can see that it outputs 9 volts. This mod just hooks up USB-C to the connector for 5 volts, passes it directly through the system. There used to be a voltage divider right there. You will bridge the connections I and O to pass the 5 volts through what used to be the voltage regulator that provided 5 volts through the system. Amazon could do it just much cheaper with a female cord and just run it from housing here and then directly put it into the circuit there. Number 2, this is my worst nightmare, are these port customizations. As you can see, I changed the insides out for black, all 3D printed parts, and then I put a gold bezel around them. And you can see I had to cannibalize and make this thing as sturdy as possible because the controllers press in and they put pushing force on the back side of this. You don't want this board to come out. And then when you pull it out, you want it to be tight enough to where it doesn't want to just fall out. So that was a whole trick. And here's what's in there originally. This is very hard to replicate, but you cannot really change the colors of the inside of this without replacing the whole thing. So I thought I would give it a go, and it works, but it's not very good or pretty. But it does not push back. It's strong enough once the shell is on to not provide any wiggling. And there's a bezel. This bezel is what goes around this porting here, and that's what I had to put these in. But I didn't make the whole bezel. I just made ones that you could turn around and flip around and put in. So that was one of the worst nightmares of my life and the worst of all this build. For the controller port customization, I also changed this LED light out so that it would be yellow, so it sort of matches the theme. Number 3, this is the port housing that the cart comes through. It houses the reset button and the power button. Here's what the original looks like. One thing that's not really talked about is how slick this surface is. And this is the mating device that houses the button. And it's also very slick. You can see the reflection to the light on it. It's very glossy. So there's no friction. It doesn't want to stick. The button itself is very slick. It doesn't want to stick. When I made this 3D print, it has a lot of friction in these areas, particularly where this white mating surface touches the shell. I put it all together and I could not even move the power buttons or the reset button. Reset button wouldn't self pull back. So what I had to do is I had to put white silicone grease on the mating surfaces, and that got rid of all the friction. It made it so it can actually work. Which brings me to my 4th nightmare. My 4th nightmare is this door. So it doesn't sit in there perfectly, and it took a lot of work to get it to this point. It has a spring back mechanism that wants to push back up, which is all well and good. There's a spring here on this middle part that gets stuck right in between these, right here. This housing does not have that. It doesn't have the separate piece on the top, so I had to make it do. I had to put the spring on there. The problem was these flap holes did not want to line up with the housing very well on the top, so it made it very hard to locate. I had to actually do some modifications to the 3D print after I printed it to make this work. It was a nightmare. Number 5 is just all the 3D printing of the parts I took to customize this. So I did a 2-tone customization, but I had to print the parts so that they had good finished surfaces. I didn't want that 3D print lines on the top surfaces that you could see. So like this is printed vertically so that I don't have that to happen. You can't really see that, but you'll see on the bottom here, you'll see the 3D print bed. So you can't really see that very well. So would I do this again? Probably not. Or I would do some modifications of my own. I would make it much more intuitive. I really hate this port situation. It's super glue. Would I do this again? Most likely not. I really hate this port customization that I did. It's not very pretty. It's hot glue and epoxy, and I don't really like doing that. I would modify this piece to somehow maybe try to get something 3D printed like this.